Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the weekly live stream where we talk about entrepreneurship, side hustles, business, careers in those things, and everything related to it. And I know why you keep coming back. You keep coming back to see the best hair on YouTube. It's no secret. It's no joke. Here it is, right? Basically, it says, I'm here to run this board meeting, but I'm also here to party. And today we're trying something a little bit different. The title of this episode is YouTube as a Side Hustle. And this is episode number 84. I have never really talked about YouTube publicly, like doing YouTube. I think it's something, it seems to me like all YouTubers do this at some point. They all talk about like what it's like to be a YouTuber, as if anyone cares. But I got a couple of requests to talk about this stuff, so if anyone's interested, let's get into it. I talk about side hustles, and as always, I'd like to encourage everyone today. I give you a live challenge to get in the chat box. You should see a chat panel box, whatever you call it, somewhere in the vicinity of my face if you're watching this on a phone or a tablet or a device. And get in there. If you're a subscriber of my channel, you should be able to get in there, ask questions, tell me what you're wondering about, tell me what you're struggling with. And I will do my best to answer your questions because this is primarily a Q&A. That's what the whole point of this is. So get in the chat box also, and if you don't know what to say, suggest an idea for a side hustle. Okay, we'll discuss any suggestions we get. I see there's 8 people here. Thank you for joining me today. You guys are awesome. As always, public service announcement. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members. My Patreons, my super thanks donors, and to you, my participants. Thank you for being here. Okay, without any further ado, let's dive into this. Now, I didn't know how to approach this topic, so what I figured I'd do today was I just opened up a very basic ChatGPT session and do it this way, unless you guys have any comments or suggestions on what you'd like me to talk about. I did it this way. Now, I'm also like a secondary theme of my YouTube channel is to encourage people to use chatbots and AI and that kind of stuff. I mean, they're like them or hate them, they are a tremendously useful tool, and they can really help you in doing whatever it is you're trying to do, from getting a job to starting a business. They can help you in a variety of ways. So it's just the people that are using this stuff are tending to be winning out, and the people that are ignoring it or purposefully not using them, unfortunately, you guys are a little bit at a disadvantage right now, and that's showing in terms of getting jobs. It's showing in terms of being able to do things effectively. So I want to encourage everyone to use it. So to that end, I figured I'd put my money where my mouth is and do this. So here's what ChatGPT suggests about things that I could cover on this topic today, and you guys can chime in, let me know. The reality of YouTube as a side hustle. So I'm doing YouTube as a side hustle. It's not my main line. I'm a consultant, but I do YouTube kind of as a fun thing that I do. It's kind of diverting. The other thing is that, I mean, not to like psychoanalyze this or anything, but my consulting business doesn't occupy all my time. It's not a full-time job. It's maybe half time or 3/4 time. So I have some time to spare, and I didn't really want to ramp it up and, fill it up completely. So I like doing YouTube to kind of fill up the holes. And in the last year or so, certainly since the beginning of 2025, I've increased the amount of time I spend on YouTube. So I just do more of the same, more side hustles and things, or I should say more live streams. The reality of YouTube as a side hustle, how much time does it take? Content creation, editing, uploading, engagement. It takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming. You can go as deep into it as you want, in the sense that if you're trying to get things better and better, it will grow to fill up all the time you have if you let it. Okay, that's generally the nature of entrepreneurship. whether it's the desire to make more money, therefore you put more time into it, or it's some kind of creative satisfaction you get from it, it will grow to occupy all the time that you have, if that's, something that you don't check, right? Some people let that happen. Other people don't. But you could do it both ways. There's certainly enough to do. How long before you can expect to make money? That's going to vary, but as everybody knows, there's a period in the beginning where, you're not monetized, and that can vary. Now, on my channel, my main channel, it was something like 18 months between when I started seriously making videos like regularly, like one a week or so, all the way until I was monetized. It was something like 18 months, as I recall. It was certainly more than 12 months. So I think that's typical. Back when I started out doing the YouTube thing, I was watching the occasional video from people that are telling you how to do YouTube, and that seemed to be kind of typical. So about 18 months. So it's not something you can start and immediately expect to have a revenue stream. That's the problem. That's the challenge. If it was, I think there would be a lot more people on it. But the way I figured was that time is going to pass whatever you're doing. So you might as well have it be contributing to something that's going to pay off, right? That's pretty much been my approach for a lot of things in life. Can you be consistent while having a full-time job? Yes, you can. Most people can. But the problem is, like a lot of people, I'm juggling three things. I'm juggling my day job, I'm juggling YouTube, and I'm juggling a family. Like having a family and having, a sort of life outside of your work, albeit not very big, but, you do have friends and you do have downtime, and you've got to make room for that, especially for a long-term thing. You just can't eliminate that, nor should you try, in my opinion. Ways to monetize a YouTube channel, AdSense. So that's like, if you do nothing and you just make videos or whatever, YouTube will eventually, they will pay you because they run ads, in the vicinity of your videos, before, after, during, around, that's how they make their money. That's how YouTube makes their money, and they make money by selling ads to companies that want to advertise, and they give you a cut, and they keep a big cut for themselves. And that so the more successful your videos are, the more people want to watch them, the more it serves YouTube's purpose also. So that's the best kind of arrangement. So in a partner. So that's the way that works. That's what's called AdSense, if you didn't know that. Affiliate marketing. I don't do this. There's many different types of YouTube channel that you could do. You could be in entertainment for a start. You could decide to do entertainment. You do little comedy skits or jokes or whatever. I don't know. And that's a completely different thing to the type of YouTube channel that I have that I'm familiar with, which is education, because I'm basically giving advice, right? So it's a kind of a different thing. But so if you do more of an entertainment thing, I suppose you could do education and get away with this. But like if you review products, then you can do this affiliate marketing, where you basically promote a product on behalf of the company that makes it. And then you get a cut of the marketing budget. So they pay you to help promote their products. So some people do that. I don't do that, but whatever. You can do that. Digital products. Obviously, I do that. That's kind of my, I think my basically one other revenue stream on YouTube, apart from AdSense, is I sell courses. So some people like to go deeper, with what I say, what I talk about. And this sounds very self-serving, but it's true. What I found is that some topics are big. You can't just explain them in a 5-minute video. You know what I mean? You need to have multiple lectures in the way that you would do a course in school. You'd have, a couple of classes a week after week for a couple of months. So that's the amount of content necessary to learn a new skill. So the biggest example of or the first example of like, for me, is I recommend people tune into networking in the hidden job market. That's something I talk about a lot on my channel. And you can't explain that in 5 minutes. It's like trying to explain how to do a job interview to a 5-year-old. You'd have to do so much setup and so much explanation of basic principles of how things work. It would be a lot. You can't just explain it very quickly in short little bites. So the course format works for me because then I can get into those topics and I feel like I can cover them properly, so it makes sense. So I'm doing the course thing. I haven't gotten into ebooks. I haven't gotten into, I do memberships. I experimented with memberships. I have, obviously, like you guys can see on the screen there, I have channel members, and that's really awesome. Some people, what I found is that for me, people do it more as like they approve of what I'm doing or something, so they support the channel. What I figured was, I figured I would do the members only video once upon a time. So I would release videos that were available only to members. And then if people wanted that extra content, they could join the channel as a member and then watch the videos. Now, I believe that works for some people. For me, that's not how it turned out. Even though I was getting millions of views on certain videos I did, I'd get like 5 views on member only videos. Even the members wouldn't watch the members only videos. So I did a whole bunch of those a few years ago. And then I've done 1 or 2 kind of very sporadically since then. And I haven't heard a lot of complaints that those have basically mostly gone away. So that was just been my experience. Other people will obviously vary. Classic Italian Culture is here. Hello, Classic Italian Culture says sorry, is that like can I talk about Mario Brothers or am I allowed to say that? Class says, just started thinking about it, but the type of channel I'm thinking about is quite overcrowded. Investing. How to stand out. I think consistency and clarity are the key to success. Okay, let's get down to it, shall we? Let's get into the heavy hitting stuff here. Classic Italian Culture. What did you say here? How to stand out. You know what always stands out no matter what? Quality. If you do something good, you will always stand out. You know what I mean? Like, the assumption is like, oh, how do I stand out in this crowd that's already saturated with all these other people? It's like, what's maybe not being said there, maybe is an assumption, is that, oh, I'm going to do something just as crappy as everyone else. It's going to be average. It's going to be mediocre, right? If you do something good, there's always room for that. I don't care if you're entering a declining industry. I don't care if you're entering an overcrowded industry. I don't care if there's major competitors and you're just a small fish. You will always win if you have quality, if you're better than them in some sense, okay? This is not just me talking. This is like tons of research that they've done in management science, like over decades, that's shown that. I mean, it appears self-evident, but my point is they've proven this with real-world numbers, real-world data. You will always win out if you focus on quality, okay? Now, I'm not exactly walking the talk on that one. I've done a handful of like really good videos, and then I've just been, I don't want to say phoning it in, but I've been doing this for a couple of years. I've been doing basically live streams. It's a very lazy way of doing YouTube, admittedly. It works for a certain audience, but quite frankly, I've had to balance like what is convenient and pleasant for me to do versus what would lead to success, So this is kind of my compromise. You know what I'm saying? So you can enter, if you want to talk about investing, and you are dismayed to see that, oh no, there's already other people talking about investing. You can come in and you can kick their ass if you're doing something good. And good is not my opinion, it's not your opinion, it's the opinion of the viewers, the audience, right? the people that are exposed to what you're doing, if they find your stuff good, quote unquote, okay, then they will come back and they will stick around. That's how this works. Okay. So, I mean, anybody can just enter this business of YouTube. It doesn't really cost you anything. You can do whatever crappy videos on your phone and put no real care or thought into it and do it. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the people that really try to do something well by whatever definition, by the definition of what people like, the audience, they decide. Those are the ones that really win out and clean up. Okay, so don't be afraid. It can be a good thing that there are a lot of other people already doing it, because that validates it. That says, like, okay, this is a thing. There is a demand for it. Here is the audience for it. I can see, look at all these other channels that have like millions of subscribers. That's the audience I'm going for. It does exist. Here's where you find it. That's what I want. So it can validate it and say, like, yes, it's right there. I'm not guessing that there's an audience for this. I'm seeing that there is one. Now I just need to try and get them to come to me, right? So that's what I would say about that. Yeah, there's always going to be, people doing things for cheap. There's going to be cheap alternatives, cheap and crappy. But it's been a very established business principle for a very long time that if you do something well, even if it means that you're it's costing you more, like, because good things cost money, right? It's more expensive to build a Lamborghini than it is to build a Honda. You know what I mean? But the thing is, the Lamborghini is a lot better quality than the Honda, as determined by the market, right? If you priced a Honda for $300,000, I don't think anyone would buy it. But if you priced a Lamborghini for $300,000, which I believe they do, people buy it. People pay for it, right? Can you imagine if they could mass produce Lamborghinis? You know how much they'd clean up? Anyway, they might not be able to charge $300,000, but they could charge $100,000. Imagine getting a Lamborghini for $100,000. I think you would really clean up. Anyway, right? So yeah, you can enter. Anybody can enter and do this. Digital products, we talked about that. Patreon channel memberships. Yeah, like I've experimented with that. It was not this massively popular thing, but it's a sort of close group of people. And what I do just personally is I say, like, okay, if you're a channel member and you ask me a question, I will answer you and I will give you a good answer. That's what you get in return. Normally I don't really respond to questions that are asked in the comments on my channel, just because I can't. There's so many. I get like X many comments per hour, and you know what I mean? It's just not possible to type out long answers like this to everybody. It just, So, but I figured, okay, if you're a channel member, whichever way, shape, or form you ask me a question, I'll answer. That was my sort of solution for how to rationalize these things. Balancing YouTube with a full-time job. The great thing about YouTube is that it's so easy to make a video. I mean, your video might not be a work of art, but you can make a video. Everybody's got, if you have like a smartphone, even a crappy old smartphone, you've got a half-decent camera on there. You can shoot a video of you just talking whatever in like 5 minutes, post it to your channel directly from your phone, bam. So it really makes it easy. And YouTube, I think to this day, they still want the one video a week thing, as far as I can tell. Like I do more than one video a week, but I think they require that one video a week. So one video a week, I mean, I think you can do that, considering it doesn't have to be an amazing video. So I think it's very easy to get started. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. It's very easy to get started. And I think that if you're wanting to do this, you should. What's the worst that could happen? You might learn some stuff. You might get a sense of accomplishment. Batch filming and scheduling content. Yes, that really helps. Instead of doing one video at a time, do like 5 videos at a time. And then so you're shooting 5 videos in a row, you're editing 5 videos in a row, you're posting 5 videos in a row, and then you're good for 5 weeks, stuff like that. That's what batching is. Outsourcing. Some people do that. I have never outsourced anything on this channel, really. I do all my own thumbnails, all my own videos, all my own posting, posts with poll questions and ads and everything. I do everything myself. It can be very labor intensive, but the other thing is that I haven't upgraded my hardware. I have a computer that I'm using for this live stream. It's my main computer in my office, and it's 14 years old. Like, I built it by buying motherboards and memory and CPUs and hard drives and crap like that, like 14 years ago, putting it all together, installing the operating system. I did get 2 webcams. I'm using 2 Logitech Brios. So, that's what I'm using. So that was an addition just so I could do videos in my office here. But apart from that, it's the hardware I had 14 years ago. Obviously, if I upgraded, it'd look a lot better. But yeah. There's 17 people here. Thank you for being here. What are we doing here? Now, if you're American, you would say this word is niche. I'm Canadian, so we say niche. Probably the French connection or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, so niche selection doesn't matter. Yeah, there's advantages of doing different kinds of content, right? If you do trendy stuff, news-related stuff, like au courant stuff, you get more of a boost, but it doesn't go for long. If you do, like what I'm doing, educational type stuff, where you answer a question, this is how this works, then that goes into almost like a library, and it kind of chugs along in the background, sometimes for years. So there's pros and cons of each. You probably heard it a million times. Do what you're interested in. Don't just do something you don't care about because you've heard that it makes more money. That usually doesn't work. You'll probably end up doing a crappy job, and your heart won't be in it, and you won't want to put in the work necessary to make it good over time. Choosing a niche that fits a side hustle schedule. I don't know what that means. Just do what you want. You don't necessarily have to niche down to the nth degree. Like, here I am on my main channel talking about entrepreneurship, right? My main channel is about how to get hired. Now, the reasoning I use that probably nobody believes is that a side hustle and entrepreneurship are they're related to getting a job, because they both provide you an income stream, and they both provide you like a living, right? You could either work as an employee, or you could work for yourself. Either way, you're working. Either way, you're making money. So they're two facets of the same thing. Now, I don't know if anyone's really coming with me on that, but that's why I talk about both of those on my main channel. For some people, they choose to go the self-employed route. There's certain advantages in that. So I group that together with my main channel. I did not make a second channel to talk about entrepreneurship. I kept it all together. The third thing that I've added just recently is talking about private equity. That's even further afield from getting a job. But it is somewhat related to management and, what businesses are, and, it relates to entrepreneurship and things. I mean, I've got 500,000 subscribers for what that's worth, and I'm using equipment that as I said, apart from these 2 webcams, everything's like 14 years old. So, you know what I mean? It really matters more, like in a talking head video, what you say and what you do than the equipment. Obviously, the equipment helps, and it's nicer to look better, and that will get you a certain boost, but it's really not the most important thing. Algorithm, SEO, and growth strategy. So YouTube is an interesting thing. Like, if you do YouTube, it's kind of like half a business, right? What YouTube does is it takes a lot of the marketing and sales away from you. And what you have to do is, you, as a business, you kind of do the operation side. You produce the product. That's what videos and shorts and posts and all that stuff kind of is, I guess. It's the product. So you're dealing mainly with operations. YouTube itself, it takes your product and it decides how to promote it, to whom it should promote it, and how. and how much, right? So it handles all of that. It's kind of like a black box. You know what I mean? So you don't really have to concern yourself with that. What I really like about it is that it forces people doing the operations side of things to think about marketing and to learn about marketing, because anybody can make a video about any random thing. Hopefully, you know that if you want that product or that video to be successful, you need to understand marketing principles. And like, for a start, you need to understand like what is the topic? Is this some random meandering stream of consciousness thing about your opinions on everything under the sun? Or is it something you're saying that could help somebody or could entertain them in some way? You know what I mean? Do you solve a problem for them? You show them how to unplug their sink or something useful? Or is it just a scattered sort of thing that doesn't really do anything for anyone, but it's satisfying for you to talk about your random political opinions or something? You know what I mean? Like, the marketing principles are very important for designing the product. The product is meant to solve a problem for, you know, an audience, right? So understanding that and those principles are really all important. So it forces operations people to start thinking about that, which you don't normally get in a lot of big business. And that's the reason why big business often, when they fail, it's usually because of that. So I think it's fascinating from a business point of view. But that's just me. How long does it take to grow? It depends how good your stuff is. But for most people, it's usually about approximately 18 months till you monetize. So you could have this chugging along in the background as just a side hustle. It's not something where it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's going to take a while, but it's a journey like any other business. It's a journey to learn what makes your customers tick and how to satisfy them. That's what it is, right? So if you're open to learning and you know certain business principles and things, it really accelerates that process. If you're very stubborn and you don't really care about pleasing anyone, it's going to take you a lot longer to get monetized and to make money. Consistency versus, you know what, I'm going to take a question here. Bushan says, hey, the company's expert. Hey, with 2 Ys. I want to land an internship in UX design. Please guide me. Okay. That's not really the topic of what we're talking about here. We're talking about, as the title suggests, we're talking about YouTube as a side hustle. So I'm going to focus on that. But I am live in an hour and a half where we answer general questions about job search and internships and all that kind of stuff. So come back then. And today I'm doing a collaboration with a YouTuber from another channel, Abby, from the Life Work Balance channel. So check that out this afternoon. Okay. So consistency versus quality debate. Quality is absolute. Like, that's the only thing that really matters. You could produce 10,000 really crappy videos, like multiple ones a day, and it won't really get you very far. You know, it might get you a few token views, but it's not going to really get you anywhere. You need quality. You need to do whatever it is that you're doing, you need to do it well. And the better you do it, the more successful you will be. Just that simple. YouTube Shorts, a fast way to get views? Not in my experience. Maybe for very visual type stuff. You know, that's been my personal opinion on it. I did the shorts thing. I did a lot of shorts. I did a couple of shorts where I really put like a lot of focus into trying to do it as good as I possibly could. Doing it as well as I possibly could. Didn't really go anywhere. I did the quantity thing, thinking that like, okay, you've got to do a whole bunch for it to like, you know, think that you're serious and then it might take you seriously. That didn't work either for me. So, you know, I know a lot of people have success with shorts, but I certainly didn't. That's just my personal experience. Is it even worth it? Well, it depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to do your own thing, make money, like replace your income, but, you know, have some kind of creative venture that's self-satisfying to a degree. Yeah, you know, like then it would make sense maybe to do YouTube, in my opinion, especially if you got some talent and you got some skill. But, there's cons too. Like, one of the things that I found is that there really is no work-life balance whatsoever. So I could be up all night doing YouTube videos. I could be doing YouTube videos on weekends. I could be, there's really no boundaries. I'm used to not having boundaries. When you're an executive, you're always on. So there's no separation. YouTube is kind of an extension of that, but it's like a very solo, solitary thing, which is kind of weird. I imagine it's a lot like being an author. If you're want to be an author, it's very lonely. You're in a room by yourself all the time writing books. That's your life, Even if you're like a best-selling author, you've got all the crowds like shouting your name and, the millions of dollars. You still have to be alone in a room for hours every day to do your thing, right? So it's kind of like that. If you're an introvert, then this might be your calling. Is it a job or a passion project? Well, that depends on you. It could be both. The best thing is to have it somewhere in between. You derive some pleasure from it, but you buckle down and get serious about it and turn it into a money-making thing and take it seriously. So it's a bit of both. Alternative side hustles with better ROI. There's probably there's a long list of things that would be better in terms of ROI, especially in the beginning. Like for the first 2 years you do this, you're probably not going to be making any money, but you're going to be learning your craft, and then that will pay off later. It's like everything else in life. It's just that you got to really put in your time in the beginning. So it's not really a solution to I'm out of a job, I need money now, what do I do? It's not really a solution to that, unfortunately. But if you get a job and then you have a job and you want to do this on the side, it might be a smart thing to do if you have a legitimate reason to do it. You can put the framework in place so that, in a couple of years, you'll be making an income from this, from YouTube or whatever. And, it gives you security. So if something happens and you lose your day job, you still got another source of income. You could potentially ramp it up then into a full-time thing. Or if you strike gold before then, you can just quit your day job and do YouTube full time, I suppose. So it really depends on. It's highly individualized. Okay, I'm sharing sort of my experience and my opinions based on having done this. So hopefully that's useful. I see there's 18 people here, so at least some people are interested. But yeah, it's like if I was working a job that I had in like my 20s, one of those kind of jobs where, you're making like a professional living, you're not making your first million, but you're getting by and you're doing okay. This would have been totally superior to working those jobs. I did shift work. I did weird days off. I did working holidays. I had a job that destroyed any kind of social life you had, and this was like back in my 20s. So this is far superior to those type of jobs. So if that's where you are, this might be something you might want to think about putting in place if you're curious about it and want to do it anyway. I'd encourage you. But you need that long-term commitment. If you don't have the long-term commitment, then it might not make sense. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Let me know if you guys have any questions on this. I've sort of covered what ChatGPT kind of said are some very basic topics here to do with YouTube. And that's been sort of my experience. And I've experimented over the years. You really do want to experiment, and you want to just try and go for things. If you're going to be a YouTuber, you're going to be any kind of entrepreneur, you need to, in my opinion, you need to have this attitude of like, screw it, let's just try it. You manage your risk. You don't like bet your life savings on anything or whatever. But beyond that, it's like, look, let's just try it. It feels weird. It feels a bit, you're out of your comfort zone. You're not sure if this is the right thing to do. Let's do it anyway, just to see. If you're too safe, if you're too kind of, oh no, I don't want to do anything that could be embarrassing, or, if it starts to feel weird, then I just back off. If that's the type of person you are, I imagine that would lead to being very conservative, very safe, and consequently you would not do a lot of experimentation, and consequently you would not learn nearly as much. You know, sometimes the best way to learn things is to just try it and see how it goes. You know, if you're not risking a lot, maybe you're risking your pride, you know, and God knows I've put my pride on the line and, you know, several times in the name of YouTube. To start with, the entire subject matter of my channel, you do not get business executives on YouTube keeping it real. You just don't, you know. There's a variety of reasons for that, but like a lot of stuff that they know and that they've seen, they don't want to talk about. It can affect their future career prospects. It can affect their reputation as someone who just airs dirty laundry in public. I was in a unique situation where I'd been an executive, I'd been a CEO, but I'd made a very conscious decision. I'm not doing this ever again. So I have nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose. So that allowed me to do things like this that no one ever gets to do. You know, if you're always thinking like, I want to go and sit on a board, or I want to, you know, put myself forward to lead business units or lead companies or whatever, and you want to be considered for that, having done something like YouTube where you talk about everything, that's kind of a big liability. You know what I mean? It's like lawyers. You know, lawyers are not going to discuss a case when they're in it, when it's a current case. Even a past case, they're reluctant to really disclose because they don't want to give away all their secrets, all their little techniques that work. Once you announce, like, here's what we were trying to do and how it worked, you know, it's like you can't use that trick again, really, you know? So there was a lot of issues around that. And I think everybody is going to have their version of that, you know? If you're worried about what your friends and family might think, what I would say is just don't tell them. This isn't about them. You don't need friends and family to be your audience. You have to learn how to attract an audience of strangers. You know, because if you can get 10 people, then you can get 10 more. And then you'll get 100. And if you get 100, you can get 100 more. You can get 200. And so on and so forth, right? You don't need your friends and family. So you could compartmentalize YouTube if you wish. In fact, I'd recommend that if that's like what's preventing you from taking the plunge, if this is something you want to do. You know, just compartmentalize it. No one's ever going to see it in the beginning. So that's a good thing in that, you know, go for it. You might feel really weird and nervous about it at first, but just, you know, it's okay. No one's going to see it. Learn how to do it better and better and better as you go. Bogdan says you have 502,000 subscribers and still host this live session for 22 people. You have my respect and attention. Yeah, this is, you see, you know what I was just saying about experimentation? Well, I'm living that right now. I'm walking the talk. This is something I've not really wanted to talk about for a very long time because I think it's very self-satisfying, and so, you know, a lot of self-absorbed people kind of do this, and you know, there's obviously not a ton of interest in it, but you know, you don't know till you try it, right? And the other thing is that my channel, that shows my channel. You see, when you do a channel on like how to get a job, you really don't build a regular audience. You know, the people that come in, they're here for a reason. They learn to get a job. They get a job and then they're out. You know what I mean? They don't stick around. So I don't have like really a regular audience. A lot of other people have regular audiences. You know, if you do something in the entertainment space and you're a fan of something, you know, and you build an audience around this like fandom of something or enthusiasts, you know, then you can sort of build like an audience that just grows and grows and grows and grows. Mine, I get people constantly coming in and constantly going out. So, you know, it's like a temporary thing. So that affects how I do the channel, right? One advantage is that you can keep talking about, you know, certain hot topics over and over again because you're talking to a new bunch of people, you know? So That's one good thing. One bad thing, of course, is that you can't just build and grow and grow and grow like this. You keep losing as many people as you gain almost, So, so it's interesting. That's why my experiences and my techniques may not apply to whatever you might be trying to do, YouTube is a highly varied and personalized thing, and you really have to sort of go your own way and learn how it works for you and what the rules are for you, Yeah, but thank you, Bogdan. That's very nice of you to say. Indoman says, when I do informational interviews, my conversation partner usually tries to ask me what I do or want, even though I don't want to make myself the topic. Any advice? Listen, you can't control other people. So if they want to ask you like, so, what brings you here, or, what's up with you? You can't stop that. The only thing you can really do is you can make them want to talk about themselves, because you are asking them questions about themselves, and you're asking them like really attractive questions, stuff they're dying to talk about, that they love talking about. So things that they're hoping people will ask them about, so they get to talk about it. So you ask that question and they'll just get sucked right in. They'll end up talking all about this thing that they're passionate about. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have control over other people, so don't beat yourself up too much. Some people, they just don't want to unclench during an informational interview. And I've met people like that. You reach out to them, you say, like, I'd very much like to ask you a few questions on that, on this topic. Is that okay? And they say, yes, absolutely, come down. But you come down, you meet with them, whether it's at their office or like, what I prefer was like a neutral sort of location, like a Starbucks or a, place like that. And, they're like very almost paranoid. They're like, okay, what did you want to talk to me about? And you ask a question, they're like, okay, well, why do you want to know that? Like, who are you? Like, what's this about? Like, why do you want to know this? Why is this important to you? And they really just can't like unclench, you know what I mean? And you have no control over that. Some people are just like that. They just don't get it. And what I've learned is that some of those people, they come from, they're coming from a situation where they have a lot of the public mad at them or their company. So they're kind of justified in being paranoid. They've fired a lot of people who are like now angry with them. They've pissed off a lot of people on a personal level. And so that creates this paranoia for some of them. You really have no control over that. So listen, just do the best you can. Try and ask them questions about something that they would enjoy talking about, something they know a lot about and they would love to talk about. And usually that's themselves. And it's their opinions on something that is important to them. So that could be like how they do their job. How should this job be done? You ask that to a typical person, they will have very strong opinions about that. They'll know a lot about it, and they'll have very strong opinions. It should be done this way, the way I do it, because, and then they'll go on for like half an hour, right? You know what I mean? Or you ask them like, what are your, let's say this person is like really, really into some sport or some entertainment thing. They really are into, comic books, right? They're like a huge comic book fan. They go to comic book conventions. They're comic book collectors, So you show up and you say, hey, I understand. I mean, I know that you've done a lot of comic book stuff. What's so great about comic books, And they'll go, have a seat, and they just get into it. And like, for the next hour, they talk your ear off about comic books. You know what I mean? They're just dying for someone to show interest in that and ask them their opinion on it, So all you can do is ask the most compelling questions possible that people have stuff to say on and people want to talk about, that they're interested in. Usually it's about them. It's about their opinions on something they know and that they do and they have strong opinions on. Okay, beyond that, you can't control them. Answer the question, say, I'm here for this. I'm just interested in this. I'm wanting to learn all I can about this, and I figured I'd come to you. and then to steer them back towards talking about the thing that you wanted them to talk about. That's all you can do. Hopefully that helps. El Duque says, what should I do if I'm interviewing for an IT director position, but the person interviewing me doesn't know squat about IT and asks, yeah, okay, this is a side hustle and entrepreneurship live stream, so I'm not really taking that kind of question, but I will this afternoon. I'm doing another one in an hour with a recruiter. We're with Abby from the LifeWork channel, LifeWork Balance channel. We're answering these questions together. So you get the perspective of a recruiter, you get the perspective of a manager and business owner. Yeah, in the absence of any other question, I suppose I'll just talk about it. But a person who doesn't know anything squat about IT. Yeah, that's a typical situation when you're applying for posted jobs. Posted jobs you have to go through a very mediocre process. It's widely known in management circles that process is very ineffective. They have data on this. They've had data for years. They know that it's very hard. They get around it by saying, well, we're not trying to find the best candidate. We're trying to find the least risky candidate, which is a different thing. Like, think about it. Let's say you had to hire for a bakery, you had to hire somebody who's going to work as the head baker. So they've got to run a bakery, like a kitchen. They've got to boss around several employees that work in the kitchen. They have to reorder, ingredients and other inventory, and manage the workload and deal with maintenance on equipment and all that kind of stuff. So how would you hire someone who's, the best baker? How would you make that selection? It'd probably be something like, well, have you done it before? And then someone says, well, no, I've never done it before, but I've always wanted to be a baker. Like, okay. Another candidate says, well, I've run a bakery for 22 years. It's a similar operation to yours. Same size, same number of people, same kind of basic thing, right? What would you do? You'd probably hire the person who's done it before, right? There you go. You see how easy it is to be a recruiter? You're not going for the best person. You're going for the least risky person, which is a completely different thing. And it really doesn't take a lot of talent to do that, right? Unfortunately, they hire people who are safe, but not necessarily good. And that's where they run into problems, right? So El Duque, here's a lesson about people. As much as you possibly can, try and get into the head of the person on your side of the table. What are they trying to do? What are their constraints? What are their goals? Right? What do they care about? And how do they see things? Right? A lot of times job seekers and the person on the other side of the table, whether they're a recruiter or a hiring manager, the job seeker doesn't understand the recruiter. They don't know what it's like to work as a recruiter. They don't understand what recruiters are even looking for or how they see anything. They assume it's one way, but they're usually completely wrong. It's actually another thing, right? So do all you can to get into that person's head. It's not about IT, it's about understanding. Like if you're talking to a recruiter, it's understanding recruiters, which has nothing inherently to do with IT. How do recruiters approach that job? And one way you could do that would be to talk to a recruiter where they can speak freely. You're not interviewing them for a job. There's no issues of like, you could be a candidate working for them. There's nothing like that. You have no relationship with this person, nor are you going to. Maybe they're an ex-recruiter, get into their head and sit them down, do an informational interview, say like, how do you approach this? What do you look for? How do you regard different things? And they'll tell you, if you were interviewing for an IT director, like, what would you ask? And if they said this, how would you regard it? Ask them those questions and then you'll learn, right? Now, maybe that's a lot of work to go to. That's a lot of hoops to jump through just for something like this. I don't know. But you could get that by going on LinkedIn, finding recruiters, and just give them a quick call and say like, or find ex-recruiters would be probably even better, because then there's no conflict of interest. And just say, hey, can I have a quick phone call with you? I'm just interested in getting your expert opinion on, just some aspects of recruiting. I'm interested in hearing what you think about it. Could I ask you a few questions? Is that okay? Let me know what number I can reach you at. Something like that. And then you can get that. Okay. And then when you go to job interviews, you understand more of how they're thinking and where they're coming from. And you go, okay, I now know kind of how to talk to them. There you go. Okay, well, so anyway, there's 16 people here. Thank you for being here. Check out that course if you want to learn business. One thing I'll say about YouTube that I didn't mention earlier is that, if you want to be good at business, learn business. It really helps. Knowing business has helped me, I don't want to say be good at YouTube, but be more successful at YouTube than I would have been otherwise, because it really is like any type entrepreneurial venture. You're having to understand marketing, you're having to understand operations. And for people like me, technical introverts, we tend to understand operations. The technical side of it is not an issue. It's the marketing side and the people side. That's what's the issue. And understanding marketing certainly has helped me do YouTube successfully. So I'd recommend it to everybody else. If you want to do that, I have a course for that. That's this thing right here, $100 MBA. There's a link in the description. Check that out. Whatever type entrepreneurship type thing you're interested in, whatever industry, in whatever capacity, you will benefit from knowing business. And this is the most flexible, best bang for the buck way you could do it. So check that out if that's of any interest to you. And if you're a serious wannabe entrepreneur, it should be. That's all I'll say. Thanks very much. You guys are awesome. I'll be back next week at the same time with another edition of Side Hustle Ideas. I will be back in 1 hour on this channel to talk about job search with Abby from the Life Work Balance YouTube channel. She's a recruiter. I'm not. I'm a manager. You can ask questions and we will both be answering questions so you can get both our perspectives on it right here on this channel. Okay. Take care, everyone. I will see you soon.